Hey guys, it's Kevin, my review for the LEGO Movie 2, the second part. And what the LEGO Movie 2, the second part, is essentially about is it picks up literally right after the LEGO Movie, and as we know, the planet Duplo has pretty much taken over, and it's gotten so bad to the point where Bricksburg is now this, like, apocalyptic wasteland and things like that, and everyone's just trying to survive and stop them from taking over. However, things get really complicated once General Mayhem arrives, and Mayhem wants to recruit some people for some sort of event, and Lucy and a couple others end up being kidnapped, and basically it's up to Emmett and the rest of the Legos to basically find Lucy, stop Duplo, and reclaim the planet as their own, and that's really all I'm going to say. I was hyped for this film. This was definitely one of my most anticipated animated films of the entire year, and in general, I mean, in terms of animation, I think this is probably one of the strongest years in a while. There's so many big, like, animated sequels coming out, and this was definitely on the top of my list for sure. I mean, the LEGO Movie, that's the definition of a movie that just completely took me by surprise, because like, I expected it to be a fun movie, but I was not expecting it to go as deep as it did. I was not expecting it to be nearly as fun and creative as it was, but it is for sure one of the best satires of there, but it also is a very heartfelt look at being special and things like that, and you know, learning to keep that retain that childhood innocence and things like that. There's just so many great messages in that movie that I think even now, rewatching it, they're even more prevalent. They're even more important. And it's one of those films that is just so rewatchable, and asking any film to follow up something like that, it definitely is a tall task, because the first film was such a success. And so I went to LEGO Movie 2 not expecting it to be better than the first one. I expected something really different, and that is essentially what I got. This is a very different movie from the first one, but for all the right reasons. For me, this is everything an animated sequel should be, and I'm gonna get into that, starting off with the voice cast, which, as expected, everyone does a great job. Some of them, I think, even stepped up their game in the first movie. With that said, let's talk about Chris Pratt, who, sure, as Emmett, he still does a great job as his character, someone who, even in these very dark times, he exudes this sense of positivity and this sense of innocence that nobody else really seems to have. Everyone else is just, like, freaking out, and they've really hardened because of the situation, but Emmett still has that really fun sort of exterior to him, and he actually does go through a pretty big arc in this film that I really was not expecting. The shift that he goes as a character is really great. It really does show how far this character has come, and he still does a really great job. He's still just as entertaining, he's still just as optimistic, and you just can't help but love him. But, of course, when he's Rex Danger Vest, that's when it's even more impressive, because this could have easily come off as just an imitation of Chris Pratt, of him just acting like himself, and I'm happy to report that is absolutely not the case. Danger Vest is such a fantastic character. I love the direction they took him in. The juxtaposition between the two is great, their interactions are great, and Pratt just does such a great job of making you forget that this is the same voice actor. I loved what they did here. I think he absolutely killed it in both roles, and as usual, Chris Pratt, he just continues to solidify himself as one of the most dedicated and just entertaining actors out there. He absolutely killed it here. And same goes for Elizabeth Banks as Lucy, who I think has even more to do in this movie, because in the first one, sure, she definitely had a lot of, like, badass moments, but this film is really kind of peeling back the layers of her a bit more. We get more into her past and things like that, and I think overall, she did an incredible job in this film. I really love where she ended up going. You know, the relation between Emmett and Lucy, it really is that, it really is the emotional core of the entire film, and I think they do a really good job with that. I really loved where they end up going with her as well, and those two alone are enough of a reason to watch this film. But then you factor in the rest of the voice cast, who also are all fantastic. Let me just center on Will Arnett for a second, because a huge standout in the first one. No one was really expecting for him to be as good as he was, and I think next to BoJack Horseman, it probably is his best role. And considering how funny he was in the first LEGO movie and the LEGO Batman movie, you would think they've gotten everything they can out of this character, and let me just say, you've seen nothing, because I think he honestly topped his work in the first movie here. He is at the top of his game here. Where they end up going with him, he has some truly hilarious moments, and I just love everything about this character. I love that he's always so depressed and things like that, especially in this situation. They really play that up quite well, and Arnett is just so damn likable in this role. I love what he ended up doing here, and I thought overall he really did an incredible job as usual. The new characters here, Tiffany Haddish, someone I was a little bit worried about because lately she has not been impressing me as much, but I actually really liked her as a Queen Whatever wannabe. I thought she was honestly very well casted here. I don't want to get too much into her character, but I thought she was definitely a lot of fun to watch. I liked where they ended up going with her. She does serve as a very sort of menacing villain, and at times she kind of reminds you of like a Disney villain with the way she goes about things, and I think they did a really good job with that. Beatriz I also really liked as General Mayhem. I thought she just did a very good job at just being this very robotic but intimidating figure. I really liked her in the film. The rest of the cast also just does such an incredible job. Alison, Brie, Charlie Day, Nick Offerman. Everyone is just really at the top of their game here. I think everyone absolutely killed it in this film. I think the entire cast, everyone's just so committed, and I just really love the entire ensemble here. I think honestly a lot of them have more to do than the first movie, and it's all the better for it, because they really do highlight how great everyone is here. But now let's get to the directing and the writing, which that's something that people might be concerned about. The film is not directed by Phil Lord and Chris Miller, although they do write it. The director of the film is actually the director of Trolls, Mike Mitchell, and look, I know a lot of people might take issue with that because of Trolls, but honestly, considering the way this movie is done, he was absolutely the right person to take on this role, because it's one of those things where, yes, he is directing it, but you really don't feel that much of a difference here. That same innocence and charm that you got from the first movie, it's absolutely here. He definitely does retain that. He also retains, though, the satire elements, which is honestly played up to an even greater degree. I thought that this film, at points, had some moments that were even funnier than the first one. I thought there were so many hilarious moments throughout this film, and I think he did a really great job with that. It's so witty and clever, and again, similar to the first Lego movie and the Lego Batman movie, there's so many jokes that you miss some of them because of how hard you really are laughing, and I think they did a really great job with that overall. But what he also did a great job with is keeping that emotion there. It is definitely still there. I've heard so many people talk about how, oh, this film does not have that edge that the first one did, and honestly, I think it goes even deeper than it did in the first one. I think they really take it to a much different direction, and I thought those two things were actually handled very well. In the first movie, it's very much a fun movie until the third act. This film, pretty much from the beginning, feels a little bit darker. It has a little bit more substance to it, and I think overall, he did a really great job at retaining it. You really don't feel the change in the director at all. He clearly knew what kind of movie he was making, and I really did love his directing here, but the writing as well, I mean, that's the thing that everyone loves, because Phil Lord and Chris Miller, they do write this movie. I think there's a couple other co-writers on it, but it definitely still feels like a Phil Lord and Chris Miller film. I mean, it has, like I said, that witty humor. It has that fun sort of feel that we're basically meant to expect from films of this nature, and I think they do a really good job with that. However, I want to reiterate, this is not the first movie. It's very different from the first movie. The first movie was very much setting up the world and getting us invested in all the characters. The second film, they expect that you know that, but it just feels a lot different. It feels more like a Star Wars movie than anything. They're going to all these different planets, and we meet a bunch of new characters along the way. There's a lot of new world building that they do, and it does stuff that a sequel should do. It really furthers these characters in a really nice and exciting way, and just in general, it has a very different feel from the first movie, while still retaining the elements that made the first movie great. And a lot of sequels don't know how to do that, but this film absolutely did. I very much felt that same vibe, and I got what they were trying to go for, even if, like I said, they were approaching some different type of territory here. And like I said, in terms of the characters, the film definitely does not fall short in that area either. In fact, I think Emmett and Lucy are even better than they were in the first one. We get a lot more into these characters. We kind of see their plight of what they're going through, especially for Emmett. He has this really great arc throughout the film where, you know, people don't really look at him as the hero because he's the one who's always positive and things like that, and he kind of needs to rise up. And I thought that it was such a fantastic arc for him. And I don't want to spoil where it ends up going into, but it is really different than what you were expecting, and I thought that was really well done. A lot of animated sequels, they have a hard time with, okay, we've gotten this character from point A to point B, now where do we really go with him from here? And this film goes into a very exciting and different direction, and that's something that I really did love for sure. Like I said, the film is also just so entertaining, and there are so many hilarious moments throughout the film, but it also does have a little bit more of a story to it. There's a lot more going on in this film. There's a lot more going on character-wise. I mean, the stuff that Duplo can do, the sort of stuff that they implement is hilarious. I mean, there's a great recurring gag with this one song, how they always seem to play pop music, and they're like brainwashing everyone. I mean, stuff like that is just so creative and different, and the film just goes into so many different crazy directions like that I really was not expecting at all. And like I said, the emotional stuff is also there, though, and that's something that a lot of people are going to expect from this film. There is emotion there, and I will say right now, it is a much different message from the first movie. Sure, the You Are Special, that is a part of it, but it's only a part of it. The film does go a lot deeper with its characters, and I think they did a really good job of that. At points, the film kind of reminded me of something along the lines of Ralph Breaks the Internet and sort of what they were trying to do. Now, the film is different in that sense, but in the way that Ralph Breaks the Internet was a very intimate film centered on Ralph and on, you know, Vanellope, this film kind of does the same thing with Emmett and Lucy, and, you know, take with that what you will. I'm not going to say anything else, but while there are a lot of characters here, the focus really is on those two, and I think they did a very good job of that, considering that, like I said, there are even more new characters here. The film never really does feel all that overstuffed. It actually does a good job at juggling all these storylines, and I was overall very impressed with that here. But again, I want to reiterate, the humor is as great as it's ever been. The satire is really in the top of its game, and all the laughs in this movie are big laughs. Like, there really wasn't a single time where a laugh would go by and I wasn't just, like, bursting out laughing. I mean, it is absolutely hysterical, and they do such a great job with it. And there's so much stuff that, especially from the first movie, there were a lot of callbacks that I wasn't expecting. One especially that I thought was so genius, and I did not think they were going to go back to it, but they did, and I loved it, and stuff like that is just so great. The writing here is just so well done. It does such a great job, like I said, of building off of the first movie, but also diving into some very different type of territory that I wasn't really expecting, and I think they did a really good job with that. I will also say the animation in this film is at the top of its game. It's going to be very hard for me to find a film that comes out this year that's animated that looks better than this one, because it is the best animation in any of these Lego movies for sure. I mean, just the look of Apocalypseburg and the very sort of cryptic, sort of Mad Max type vibe they're going for. When you contrast that with the look of Duplon, I mean, it looks fantastic. I love the juxtaposition between the two worlds. It's very vibrant and colorful, but it also does feel very dark at points, and they do such a great job with just really making the colors pop and things like that. It's so aesthetically pleasing, and it just makes me upset that I already know it's not going to get any sort of accolades or anything like that, because for some reason the Academy doesn't like to recognize, you know, Lego movies. And I know it's early in the year, but just knowing that it's not going to get that recognition it deserves is upsetting, because I really do think this is like state-of-the-art animation. This is animation to beat. It is such a wonder to behold, and I think they do such a great job when it comes to the animation here. I mean, the mastery is just on full display, and I love everything about the animation here. The score in this film. Now, if you don't know, which you probably do from other reviews, this movie is a musical. There are actually quite a few more songs here, something that you may not be expecting, and a big reason for that is because of Duplo. They actually do a lot of songs throughout it, and look, I will say this. I like the songs that are in this movie. Some of them were a bit too repetitive at first because most of them do come from Tiffany Haddish's character. But I still really did enjoy them. I thought they did a really good job with this music. It worked with the story. It didn't feel out of place to me. There's one especially with Batman that I thought was absolutely hilarious, and I loved what they were doing there. And I just had such a big old smile on my face while watching that. And again, like, I want to reiterate how funny this movie really is, and a lot of that is due to the music and things like that. But again, the music, it fits organically with the story. It doesn't feel out of place, and I think it actually did work quite well. I can understand if some people might have a problem with that, but I think overall they did a really good job with that. I will say, though, in the way that people really adore Everything is Awesome, and, you know, when they look at the first Lego movie and that's one of the first things they remember, I will be very surprised if people leave this movie and they don't feel the same way about Catchy Song, because to me, it is on that level. It is absolutely the big standout in this movie. It's that song you're going to be humming probably for days and months and maybe even, you know, just weeks to come, weeks and maybe even months to come. It's extremely, it does what it says it's going to do. It does get in your head, and it actually does play a role in the film really well, and I really loved what they end up doing with it. And yeah, there's a lot of great songs throughout this movie, but out of all the ones, I think that's the one that people are probably going to remember the most. And then the ending with this film. It is a very fast-paced movie like the first one, but it moves at a really good pace. It never felt too fast-paced or anything like that, and I thought overall the pacing was just very fluid. It was so fun to watch. The film really did fly by for me quite well, and there's a lot of great editing techniques. Some of them even are part of the humor. There's one especially in just the middle of the movie. It comes out of nowhere, but you'll know it when you see it. It is so genius, and stuff like that. That's what I really love about this movie. Just really smart satire like that. It's just so well done here. So with all of the stuff that I really did love, you know, the amazing animation, the great characters, it's very hard to find a flaw in this movie, and you may think that I think this is as great as the first one, and no, I'll say that right now. There are a couple things that do hold it back for me. Still, love this movie. It really is an incredible sequel, but there are just a few things that do, I think, bring it down just a bit. Now, some of the flaws I did have were actually fixed in the third act of the movie because the new characters, while I was enjoying them, I didn't really feel that emotionally connected to them. And then something happens in the third act. I'm not going to say too much about it, but I will say it really did change how I felt about all three of these characters, these reveals that we ended up getting with them. It really changed how I felt, and I think they did a really good job with that. So I was impressed by that. However, the one character that did fall a bit flat for me is Tiffany Haddish's character. I really did enjoy her in the film, but there's a certain direction they go with her and Batman, and without getting into it too much, I just didn't really feel this direction. It didn't feel as natural as it should have, and I get what they were trying to do, but once a certain thing was revealed with her, because at first the way they set it up, it seems to make sense, but then when a certain thing was revealed, it just did not feel as natural as it should have, and it just didn't really work as well for me. The other characters, though, I really do love, and I really did love where they went with them. And then my only other small flaw with the film is the music. While I enjoyed it, I think there actually could have been a little bit more. I think they could have added like 2 or 3 more songs, and I would have liked it just as much. I love all the music in this movie. It's very well done for sure. But I just wish that there was a little bit more of it. I wish they could have added a little bit more music there, and then I would have been just overall head over heels in love with it. But again, at the end of the day, I do still love this movie. I want to reiterate, this is still a damn good sequel. It's very different from the first film, but it does retain that same smart satire that you're expecting. It has that great emotional heft to it. If anything, it goes a lot deeper with its characters. It has a really committed voice cast. Everyone really is fantastic here for sure. And it even has some stuff that, like I said, I do think tops the first movie. It doesn't overall top the first movie, but I wasn't expecting it to. I didn't go into it thinking this is going to be better than the first movie, so that's not necessarily a problem for me. Just at the end of the day, I can say that I got what I wanted from this movie. It built on the themes of the first one. It retained the humor. It retained the emotion. It retained the very smart satire that we've come to expect. It retained the just fun sort of feeling to it. The creativity is there. If anything, they top it at points, and just everything about it is everything that a great animated sequel should do. I can already tell this is going to be a film that I think is really overlooked towards the end of the year, and it really is a shame because I really do think that this is a really damn good sequel. It ends in a way where I'm very excited to see where they go if they do decide to make a third one, because there's still a lot more you can do with this world for sure. It's just such a creatively endless world in that way, and I really would love to see where they go with it if they were to make a third movie. But overall, this was pretty much everything that I wanted it to be, and I'm definitely going to give the Lego Movie 2, the second part, overall an A-. Definitely check this one out as soon as you can, guys. Like I said, I'm honestly really surprised this film is not getting more love, because to me, it almost is as good as the first one. It's like very close to being as good. But that's really for this video. Hope you guys enjoy it. Let me know if you guys saw this movie overall, left your thoughts in it. What is your favorite of the Lego Movie so far? I'd probably go Lego Movie, then this one, then Lego Batman Movie, and then Lego Ninjago. But that's really it for this video. Hope you guys enjoyed it. We'll see you guys in my next video, and we'll see you guys for that. Okay, bye.